Hello, and welcome to an honorable mention of the best games, period. I'm your host, Jack Gardner, and this week, I don't have Jeremy or Daniel. It's just going to be me. Last week you just had Jeremy and Daniel, so we're kind of making up for it a little bit. A little universal karma going on this week. But, yeah. So this week, as you may have gathered from reading the very sumptuous title of this episode, I don't know why I referred to it that way. I'm recording this very late, kind of very last minute, so just bear with me when I say weird things. But this week we are doing Earth Defense Force 2017. And a lot of people will either know what I'm talking about right off the bat and be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Or you will never have heard of this game and you'll be very confused as to what it is and why I'm bringing it up. So, let's just kind of jump into it. Because on the surface, it's a very straightforward game. There are few, if any, strings attached to what makes Earth Defense Force 2017 an honorable mention for this show. It is very much a straightforward third-person shooter game. And the main premise is that you play as a member of the EDF, the Earth Defense Force, and you are repelling a gigantic alien invasion of Earth. And that's pretty much it. I believe you play specifically as a soldier named Storm, codenamed Storm 1. And so you get yelled at over the intercom throughout the entire game as Storm 1. And you're just like, you start out as a run-of-the-mill member of the EDF, and by the end of the game, you are like the guy. You're the dude saving the Earth. And it's interesting because you see tons of other members of the Earth Defense Force, but they are all worthless. They are terrible at their jobs. I don't know how they got on the Earth Defense Force, but they need to be fired immediately. And so, yeah, you're shooting at these aliens. But one of the neat little twists about these aliens is that they're all giant bugs. So you have giant ants, you have giant spiders. There are a bunch of different kinds of these enemies. And you also have giant robots, which are by far my favorite because when you shoot them, they have the craziest ragdoll physics. Like taking a single bullet from a gun to them is like getting just tossed around in a WWE wrestling ring, and they are like 5 times the size of skyscrapers. So, and then they explode like tiny nuclear bombs when they fall on the ground, and you've killed them. And so, you have all these different enemy types. They're all very fun, and like I'm not gonna say that they're like the most creative things ever, because they're really not. It's like somebody found some stock assets of, like, oh, we have this giant ant. Let's blow it up a little bit. So it's an even bigger giant ant. And then every so often you'll get to, like, I guess what amounts to a boss stage, where you'll have to, like, fight flying alien aircraft carriers that are spitting out little flying robots, or you'll have to fight a giant Godzilla-like monster, or you'll these little breaks, or you'll go underground. And also buildings and structures get blown up right and left throughout the game, both by you and the aliens. I quite enjoy that aspect of it. You can literally just level an entire city while you're trying to defend the city. And one of the things that will put a lot of people off about Earth Defense Force 2017 right off the bat is that the visuals are terrible. This game looks like it was made for the PlayStation 2, and got ported up to the Xbox 360, and I'm about 90% sure that's exactly what happened. But that being said, there is like a almost perverse charm about the game in that it looks so terrible and sounds so terrible and the story is so terrible that it comes right back around to being great. And you'll kind of hear me echoing here a little bit of the sentiments that I have when I did my honorable mention about Overblood way back in the day. Our first honorable mention for the best games period. And that's because this game falls into the very specific category of a game that is so bad it's good. Except for different reasons than for Overblood, where pretty much everything was so bad it's good. Because all of the presentation aspects of Earth Defense Force 2017 are either range from barely serviceable to laughably bad. When it comes to like sound effects and some of the special effects like the explosions, those are barely serviceable. When it comes to things like the story for Earth Defense Force, it is laughably bad. Like, for example, throughout the entire game, there is kind of a narrator or like news anchors or like there's some kind of narrator for each of the different levels, and there are dozens and dozens and dozens of levels throughout this game. I think there are over 50. Anyway, and they are voice acted it's really hard to describe. I might play a little clip of it here if I have the time or willpower to edit it in.
I can't believe my eyes! A huge spaceship is floating above the city! It looks like something out of a science fiction movie. The government has named these extraterrestrials Ravagers. They are currently attempting to establish contact with the Ravagers. Are they our friendly galactic neighbors, or are their intentions more sinister?
It's honestly just kind of shocking how bad it is. And then also just from the story perspective, there are just so many little things that will, to certain people, and that's why this is an honorable mention and not a best game period, but there are tons of little things that will just absolutely endear it to you if you are the kind of person who enjoys bad movies or bad games. For example, the alien species that the player is fighting they're called the Ravagers, and that's just what the people of Earth have decided to call these creatures. Except in the very beginning of the game, the Ravagers just kind of show up, and they haven't really done anything. They're just spaceships in the sky, kind of an arrival-like situation. And that's the thing that the people of Earth decided to call the Ravagers before they had even done anything. Like, that's like seeing a stranger on the street and just being like, hey, it's Axe Murderer Jim. It's just like, why would you call someone that? There's no reason for you to assume the absolute worst about that guy who I suppose could be an axe murderer, but most likely isn't. And the same thing applies with aliens. We have no idea if aliens just arriving are going to be Ravagers, but they kind of really, I guess, in a way, I guess the people of Earth really brought the ravaging on themselves with that naming scheme. So, putting it on you, Earth Defense Force planet. Anyway, all of that aside, all of the presentation issues aside, if you strip that away, what you have is actually a really solid third-person arcade experience. And while this game, I can totally understand if somebody played it alone, and eventually kind of getting bored with it and seeing it kind of get old, this game is really, really dumb fun for two people. You can play it split screen, local co-op, and that is the ideal way to play Earth Defense Force 2017. And there are several levels of difficulty for each stage. And the main premise is the higher the difficulty, the better the weapons you get. And so if you're having trouble with a stage, because the difficulty really does spike at random intervals throughout the game. If you're having difficulty with a stage, you can just replay an older stage at a higher difficulty, get some new weapons, some better weapons, and then re-tackle kind of this stage that's further along. And the game is very grindy, and it's dumb fun, but it's good dumb fun. Like, everything feels really good. You feel kind of awesome with the amount of power you have, because a single rocket will level an entire building. And so, just going around fighting these aliens, watching all of this destruction unfold, even though the graphics are kind of lackluster, keep in mind, this game came out in, I think, 2006. So it really wasn't the most technologically advanced game of its time. However, it does shockingly play very, very smoothly, except when it throws literally everything at you. So, like, the final levels can get a bit hairy with slowdown and kind of choppy graphics, just because the game is throwing so many giant ants and giant spiders and giant robots and flying spaceships at you. It can get too much for the console processor. That being said, it's totally worth it. I love this game to death. It makes me laugh. It makes me. It gave me a lot of good memories with some good friends of mine growing up. And if you're looking for a co-op game, and especially this game, it came out in 2007. Sorry, I think I said 2005, 2006. It came out in 2007. Over 10 years ago. This game has been out for 10 years now. I'm pretty sure you can find this game very, very cheap, and it is very worth it just for that co-op experience. Because you'll find yourself trying to come up with tactics to defeat giant hordes of ants, and trying to figure out the best weapons to use. And, like, here's the thing. All the weapons have infinite ammo. It really just comes down to what kinds of shots you want to shoot out, what kinds of reload times you want to look at. And it's just a really good time. If you want a really good time, please check out Earth Defense Force 2017. It has everything. Giant ants, giant spiders, giant robots, giant Godzilla monsters. What more could you possibly want? And it also has all the B-movie cheesiness and strange sincerity that you would want out of the best So Bad It's Good movie. So, yes, check it out. I don't think you'll regret it. However, do keep in mind that this game isn't for everyone. I want to. That's why I'm putting this as an honorable mention. Like, for example, I'll read the opposite perspective. I found some low reviews off of Metacritic, so I'm gonna read one of those off to you now. This one comes from user Alistair P. Gave it 3 out of 10 and says, "Okay, so I had it on for half an hour and now I'm crying. I actually had it on for an hour and a half doing co-op, and it was just painful. It was fun at first, but then it gave way for nausea. The enemies keep coming with no sign of what progress you have made. There is nothing at all to do other than shoot obvious insects, and it just sucks. Everything about this game sucks. I really regret renting it. That's only $8, and I've been dwelling on it, because I would have paid $8 just not to have played this game. Piece of caca." Which, if you don't know, that's Spanish for poop. So, it's odd because everything that Alistair P says is true. Like, that's looking at this game from a slightly different perspective. So, this game does have a lot of repetitive elements. It does have some boring bits to it that I'm sure not everyone's going to be on board for. But this game is the difference between a person who watches a bad movie and finds enjoyment and can, like, laugh at it or along with it in some cases. And the person who's just like, this is a terrible movie with no redeeming qualities. I hate it. So if you're the kind of person who's going to fall into the second camp, you probably have better things to do with your time. But if you're the kind of person like me who's going to fall into that first camp of people who are ready for campiness and just down for some solid arcade action, you're going to have a really good time with Earth Defense Force 2017. It's going to make you laugh. It's going to make you not really cry, but it's going to make you have a good time. Laugh and have a good time. And, I mean, really, that's kind of what, like, at the bare minimum, that's what we want from at least a lot of our games. We want to have a good time. And I think Earth Defense Force 2017 accomplishes that in its own very unique way. Like, it's not... And that's part of why it sticks out in my mind so much, because there's not a ton of other games like Earth Defense Force 2017. Even games further along in the Earth Defense Force series, which, if you like Earth Defense Force 2017, I'd suggest you check out the rest of the Earth Defense Force series. The newer ones kind of iterate on the gameplay, and they actually do get even better. However, the story elements and those cheesy elements kind of have receded into the background, or the game became too self-aware and started trying to force a lot of that humor, and it didn't work quite as well as it did in 2017. But I figured, at least sometime this year I should bring up Earth Defense Force 2017, because I want all of you to be prepared for the bug-apocalypse. So, play the game, get prepared, have some fun, and then have your bunker ready. Go out and buy like 12,000 cans of Raid, because the bugs are coming, and when they get here, you'll be defenseless unless you have a copious amount of bug spray. So, I mean, I'm not saying, but I am saying. So, thank you so much for listening to me ramble on for a while about Earth Defense Force 2017. This is this year's 2012 disaster game. It was very prescient, made about 10 years ago. So, yes, please check it out if you are inclined. And next week we will have a fabulous episode. We were going to have a special guest on this week. It just didn't quite pan out, and that's mostly my fault. I had family emergency stuff that came up and is frankly still going on, but we wanted to have something up for you this week, so this is just kind of an emergency recording session. It's probably going to sound a bit rough, and I apologize for that. But like we do every week, I'm going to wrap up by just saying, hey, you know what? Have you heard of Extra Life? If you haven't, it's basically this wonderful charity, part of Children's Miracle Network Hospitals, where people sign up and then they play games and raise money for sick and injured kids in hospitals all across the United States and Canada. It's really that wonderful and easy. If you like playing games and you like helping kids, do this, because you can do both at the same time. It's great. And what makes it even better is each person who signs up can actually choose which Children's Miracle Network hospital they want to support, and 100% of all the money they raise goes directly to that hospital to pay for the medical expenses of sick and injured kids. So, yeah, that's great. You know where the money is going, and it's going to help those kids and help the hospital provide for those kids. So, yes, do that. Head over to extra-life.org, and you can find out more and sign up over there. Find out which Children's Miracle Network hospital is close to you. So, I do recommend that. And you can also head over to the community side of things, community.extra-life.org, and find this very podcast, along with just a ton of really great community members in the forums who are willing to answer any of your questions or just chat about games and have a good time. They're a really friendly bunch. Highly encourage you check that out. And also, there's just a bunch of really great articles about games and gaming in general. We've had a lot of stuff going up lately about E3 and all the cool stuff we got to see behind closed doors there. So, yeah. Just go out and check out all the great things. What are you waiting for, you goofy goober? I'm very tired. So I'm going to wrap this up. I could go on for a little longer about Earth Defense Force, but honestly, you can probably pick it up for like $5, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's on sale now. Steam summer sale going strong, stripping all the wealth from our wallets. So see if you can track it down. That being said, thank you for listening. You can find our podcast on SoundCloud, Libsyn, iTunes. You can also follow us, support us on Patreon for $1 a month. You get to listen to, exclusive content like extra conversations that we sometimes cut from full episodes for time, or longer discussions that we have with guests, or sometimes just full-on episodes. I know we have at least one episode where we discuss video game documentary films. There's one we are still in the process of putting up. I meant to put it up a while ago. It'll probably go up sometime soon, as soon as I get kind of this family stuff squared away on my end. So that's my bad. Sorry, Patreon supporters. Yeah, okay, I think that's everything. So yes, thank you for stopping by and spending time listening to this crazy podcast. And we'll be back soon, hopefully with that special guest. We have, I'll just say it, we have Lainey Berry, Lainey Berry, which is, oddly enough, not a specific type of berry that you might find in the wild. She's a game developer from the UK, and she's in the process of releasing a point-and-click adventure game. And she's a busy lady. We happen to get her on board for this podcast, so I'm hoping we can get her on next week or the week after. It's kind of a bit up in the air, so look forward to that. And I believe she wanted to talk about Day of the Tentacle, so you have that to look forward to. And if she's not on next week, then the other thing we have planned is an episode on The Elder Scrolls IV: Oblivion. So, yes, I'm pretty excited to talk about both of those games, and you should get excited too. Alright, I'm going to flippity-dippity out of this situation, and we'll see you on the other side, the dippity-flippity. Oh yeah, nailed that outro. Nailed it. Just gonna put my name on it. That was good. That was 100% great. As Tony the Tiger would say, great.